It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this for July 21st, 2023. For the next hour or so, let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, FTC pumps the brakes on its opposition to the Microsoft Activision deal, and Spiderman 2 is looking real good. But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host of Game Mess Mornings. It's Jez Corden from Windows Central, everybody. Jez, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm glad we can make this happen. I am, it's been a week. We just recorded a Remnant 2 quick look, and I normally don't do like work stuff before Game Mess Mornings, and it's like, am I going to be able to juggle this? But it went fine. It went pretty good. It ended with Dan getting stuck on geometry though, so look out for that in the quick look, everybody. But yeah, I don't know. I'm good. I'm like, I feel like I'm getting way behind on games this year. Like we're halfway through the year, right? And somehow I'm like, I played way too much Zelda, and now there's all these other things I want to play, and I'm kind of far behind. And Game of the Year is going to be here in no time. That's what it feels like to me. I don't know. You just play World of Warcraft though, so you're probably not feeling that, right?
Well, to some degree, like I was just thinking, like, God, I'm struggling with the backlog stuff as well, and Zelda wasn't even on my radar. And I've just installed Remnant 2, and like there's game previews coming up, and the Starfield and Armored Core, and I haven't even and then Diablo's got a new season, and like World of Warcraft's just had a content drop as well, and it's like
it's so they are like hitting the things that are like core to Jez. It sounds like a lot of all that stuff is happening at the same time. Are you doing the seasonal stuff for Diablo?
I honestly don't know. Like I did get a dabble this morning with the Malignant Hearts and stuff, and I was just like, my main character still isn't at level 100, main or whatever, Eternal Realm, and it's kind of like, so do I just abandon that now and then start grinding the battle pass? And I'm really not feeling it, to be honest. I'm just kind of like, man, do I really want to do this again after just doing it already?
Did you you got a good time out of Diablo 4, right? Like trying to force yourself to turn it into another hobby is kind of something me and Mike were talking about. And it's like, you don't have to do that. Like, it's okay to put the game down for a while if you had your fill of it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was actually thinking about that this morning because loads of people are complaining like there's not enough content and all this, and then like my friend was joking with me. She was saying like, yeah, the people complaining there's not enough content probably have like 300 hours played and stuff, and I have about 200 hours played or something like that. So it's kind of like, yeah, it's encroaching on World of Warcraft, which is a hobby, definitely, and that's having a really good content cycle as well. So right now, so I'm just kind of like, I kind of want to. Well,
yeah, I heard about World of Warcraft getting Glorbo. Did you see this? Glorbo coming to World of Warcraft.
Oh man, I watched that.
Love that.
That was so funny. I watched that play out in real time because I was scrolling in bed, and then the World of Warcraft subreddit comes up. So like, for those who don't know, what essentially happened was someone on the World of Warcraft subreddit noticed that this gaming app called ZLeague.gg. I've never heard of it until this.
Yeah.
This is a hilarious introduction to Z League, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Z League, for the Americans.
Yeah. Well, we got it. We knew what you meant. I wasn't going to translate for you, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. But essentially what happened was some people in the World of Warcraft subreddit, they noticed that the articles coming out of this Z League thing were suspiciously like the threads on World of Warcraft. It was like, I remember one of the article titles was like, what character should I play this season? World of Warcraft players react. And it was just a Reddit thread that had been run through ChatGPT to produce content for Google's algorithm or whatever.
Yep.
And so one of them was like, let's shitpost for a few hours and see what happens. And so there was this thread like, oh man, I can't wait for Glorbo to be added to the game.
They teased Glorbo in, what they say, in Hearthstone in 1994. And I've been excited ever since then. It's finally coming to World of Warcraft. And it's like, beat for beat, that's what the story is. Just AI taking these points and turning it into a story, being fooled. And it's like, yeah, man.
Incredible.
I
was so
love
funny.
that. That is subreddit's being pretty clever, and I appreciate that. All right, we're gonna get into this mess, but before we do, let's explain what we do here. Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you were watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. Okay, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with the FTC is suspending its in-house antitrust lawsuit against Microsoft. This comes from Haley Williams at GameSpot. The Federal Trade Commission's case against Microsoft's intended acquisition of Activision Blizzard is slowing down after it announced they would be suspending its in-house lawsuit. As reported by The Verge, the administrative challenge that was set to go before its own administrative judge in August has been suspended. In addition to its own lawsuit, the FTC also filed for a temporary restraining order while seeking a preliminary injunction that would keep Microsoft from closing its deal to purchase Activision Blizzard. That injunction was, of course, denied by a U.S. district court, and further appeals by the FTC also failed to extend that. After the district court ruled that the FTC failed to raise any strong points in its objection to its Microsoft deal, it's unlikely its own in-house judge would have reached a different conclusion. There's a little bit more of this story, but we'll jump off there for now, Jez. That seems to be what's happening here. I think trying to nail down how the FTC was going to behave early on was difficult because the FTC is changing to how it used to behave in the past. And so in the early days, it's like, well, FTC is pretty much going to like let this go through. And it's like, no, they're not. Actually, they're going to try to stand in the way. And the way to understand that was they were trying to be a bother. That was their strategy. They think if we can cause as many headaches for these companies as possible, they will second guess doing the merger in the first place. That is the theory behind what they're doing. That has clearly met its end, and you can kind of see why. Sure, they could continue to be a bother and kept this internal in-house, injunction thing before the judge here inside like their own court. But that would have been a problem, especially if they lost, because that would have looked real rough. The FTC can't even win this case in its own court, and they're facing some scrutiny from U.S. Congress, and they probably don't want those bad headlines popping off. This seems like the right exit point for the FTC to be like, we did our best to try to like cause as many problems for Microsoft as possible. In the end, they won. That we just have to accept that and move on. Is that how you read this?
Don't they have a subsequent appeal day at some point or something? They haven't completely dropped the appeal, just their internal hearing, if I'm understanding that correctly.
Yeah, they might have an appeal still ongoing, but like I don't know who they would be appealing to, because the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals denied them already, and then the next one after that they could go to, I think, and I'm no expert on law, but my understanding would be the next court after that would be the Supreme Court. And again, I don't think they want to like take this to the Supreme Court and risk embarrassment there. So
I think that they pretty much see the writing on the wall now, and like the not to get conspiratorial, but there was this whole narrative that they were colluding with the UK CMA to further. I don't think that's too conspiratorial. Seems like that's what they were doing. Well, I mean they admitted it to an MP's committee, but it was like you talked about causing headaches at the end of the day. It seems like they've run out of headaches they can cause, or they're getting very close to running out of headaches they can cause. CMA is also going through the motions of giving Microsoft an out and a divestiture or whatever they're going to do, per reports from Bloomberg or Financial Times or something like that. I don't know. So it does look like we're coming to the end of this beat, Jeff.
Yes,
it does look like we're coming to the end.
A little bit. Let's hop to that so we can just wrap it all up. CMA awaiting Microsoft's proposals to reach agreement on Activision deal from Oshin Kunke. In a recent interview, chief executive at the UK's Competition and Markets Authority, Sarah Cardell, shared that the organization is waiting on Microsoft's proposal for how it will address concerns regarding its Activision Blizzard purchase. Speaking to Sky News, predominantly on the topic of food inflation in the UK, Cardell was also asked about the current state of Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard. Earlier this year, the CMA blocked the deal over concerns regarding cloud gaming, with Microsoft later filing an appeal over the group's decision. According to Cardell, the CMA is still yet to receive word on how Microsoft plans to address the concerns raised, saying, "We're waiting for those proposals to come to us. We've agreed with Microsoft to stay on the litigation, which means that we can focus on understanding whether it is possible for them to provide a restructure that addresses our concerns. The ball is very much in their court at the moment. When asked about whether the CMA has compromised with Microsoft, with some accusing the group of caving into pressure from the tech company, Cardell responded, "We certainly haven't compromised. Our decision to prohibit the deal stands. We understand from Microsoft that they would like to put forward proposals to us to restructure the deal, to potentially renegotiating that deal to address our competition concerns." And I think, Jez, you were right when you said that they are also looking for an out. They're also looking for a way to gracefully get out of this. At the same time, they are looking to save face. And when they were before the judge earlier this week, I think it was, the CMA and Microsoft were talking about, like, hey, what are we going to do going forward to kind of get this deal wrapped up? The CMA is like, we still stand by our original ruling. We stand by our original ruling, and they haven't backed off from that. I think the moment they get a new offer from Microsoft, they are likely going to be like, no, this magically solves everything. Let's get out of this. We don't want this in our hair anymore. Again, is that how you read it?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the economic issues are a big talking point in Britain right now. Our inflation's like 16%, I think, something like the core inflation. I don't know. I don't keep track of that because I'll cry a lot.
Yeah.
But but the UK inflation's a big problem right now, and the government in the UK is actively trying to avoid any sort of suggestion that they are involved in preventing investment from occurring in the UK. Now, the CMA is, of course, independent of the government to some degree, but you have to expect that, like, ministers have been leaning on the CMA to be like, hey, this could be a really bad look if you guys mess this up. And you might have MPs calling for a restructure of the CMA, and the CMA doesn't want that kind of heat. They don't want that kind of attention. And everyone's having budget cuts left, right, and center right now. So if it sort of becomes this sort of political issue, which it has to some degree in America, we've seen some certain
Elizabeth Warren doesn't fully understand the deal. That's pretty obvious. She's on these sorts of subjects pretty often, and this looks very similar to things where she's been correct in the past, and I think she's just sort of going through those motions again. But I mean, it's become political for the FTC, I think, where they were dragged before the U.S. Congress to talk about these sorts of 4 losses in a row. And if you look at their record, it's not like 0-4. They've won a lot of cases. Just like when you cherry pick these kinds of deals, it's been pretty rough for them. Yeah. But I think I could see what you mean, like for the CMA in the UK. I think it's very easy for Microsoft to point to, if we bypass the UK, if we do take our business out of the UK, for one, that is the investment leaving the country, and that is going to look bad. But also, you might get the worst prices out of all of Europe, because the Game Pass effect and us like driving down prices because we're trying to give everyone a deal if they get on the subscription, it's going to make it very easy to access a lot of these games. And in the meantime, that might be impossible to do in the UK based on whatever the original ruling was. And so you'd have to pay more there, and that's just more inflation. And it's, so you could see how those political factors are beginning to be like making the CMA question this and say, hey, Microsoft, please give us something to figure this out.
Yeah. Well, this was one thing they said in the MPs committee. I can't remember exactly what the quote was, and I can't remember exactly who said it, but CMA was dragged in front of MPs to discuss some of this stuff. And I can't remember if it was actually in that hearing or if someone had said it to press, but someone fairly senior in the government said the CMA needs to remember its responsibility to the globe, global consumers, and how blocking this deal might affect. He was basically saying like this deal might affect relations with certain US politicians and stuff like that. And not Microsoft, the government was. They're desperate to get some kind of trade deal out of Joe Biden.
Oh, so that's right. Yeah,
there is political stuff going on. Yeah.
Right, because it's like not in the EU, so they're looking for those bilateral deals. And that's that. Anything that stands in the way of that, they probably don't want on the table. That said, the reason this deal feels like it's really going to go through is that it's mostly going to accomplish what Microsoft says it's going to accomplish, especially now after they've made all these agreements with everyone else to keep things on an even hand. So, we're probably very soon going to be living in a world where Activision actually is under Microsoft after more than a year and a half of waiting for this deal to close. was a hell of a ride, Jez. All right, let's move on here. Marvel Spider-Man 2 reveals more villains in story trailer. This is from Eric Hittelbeck-Furu at Game Reactor. Insomniac had been hyping up its San Diego Comic-Con panel for a while, so it was clear the developer was going to share some juicy stuff about Marvel Spider-Man 2. That included a new trailer. Marvel Spider-Man 2's story trailer reveals that Mr. Negative returns from the original game, something that obviously affects Miles in a major way, as Martin Lee, who is Mr. Negative, killed his father. That's on top of Kraven and Venom being the big new baddies, and tonight's trailer finally gives us a much better look at the latter. Yeah, we saw a lot more Kraven in this. We also saw a lot of Harry Osborn, who is clearly going to be Venom in this story. I don't know. Are you a big Spider-Man guy? Of all the PlayStation exclusives, the Spider-Man games have been by far my favorite, so I am very excited about this, Jez.
I mean, I appreciate the fandom of Spider-Man. Like, it's become so big and so ubiquitous. Like, when I was a kid, it was all Batman, Batman, Batman. But now it feels like the next generation, it's all Spider-Man, Spider-Man, Spider-Man. Right?
Yeah, a little bit.
And Spider-Man was obviously big when I was a kid as well. But I haven't played. I regretfully have not played it yet. But it's one game I've been eyeing for my Asus Raj ally.
Sure, yeah. For the Raj, yeah.
Yeah. But we were having that debate yesterday about how to pronounce it, right?
And I love the idea of calling it Raj. Roger ally here.
I was calling it the Raj unironically for the longest time.
I think I could see that because like ROG it's not really how you would say ROG. But Republic of Gamers sounds like it would shorten to that. But if you ask Asus, they're like, no, it's just ROG. I'm like, what? No. what are you even doing over here? All right, guys, whatever. I'm gonna keep calling it shorthand ROG. I think. But yeah, those Spider-Man games are great on Steam Deck. They're clearly going to run even better on the Ally. They're very good, and I think this trailer is the one that has done the most for me for Spider-Man 2. I think what they showed at the showcase, I don't know, it didn't show as well as I would have wanted. This feels like, okay, they are going for the emotions. All the characters look really cool. They're, the relationships between Miles and Peter Parker, and then the relationships between them with their superhero alter egos, and then their normal lives. Looks like it's just going to be so dramatic. So yeah, I'm super into this, ready for this game to pop off here pretty soon. And I'm glad that we're here where they're actually starting to really promote this game. It's going to be here in no time. Part of promoting that game is Sony reveals Spider-Man 2 PS5 consoles and controller. This comes from Andy Robinson at VGC. PlayStation and Insomniac Games premiered a new Spider-Man trailer at San Diego Comic-Con on Thursday and revealed a special edition PS5 console and controller. The trailer sets up our story in the game, blah, blah, blah. Senior narrative director John Paquette told PlayStation Blog, at the beginning of our story, our Spider-Men are at the top of their game, but both Peter Parker and Miles Morales are struggling with their personal lives. Miles is trying to find time to write his college entrance essay, but he keeps procrastinating and focusing on Spider-Man work instead. Meanwhile, Peter is underwater on payments for Aunt May's house, but he can't sell. It means too much to him, and just like Miles, Peter tries and fails to find balance with so many responsibilities. MJ wants to help Pete with the mortgage, but her job is on the line now that J. Jonah Jameson is back at the Bugle and looking to clean house. Our heroes have arrived at a confluence of crossroads with uncertain futures and some tough decisions ahead. The Marvel Spider-Man 2 limited edition PS5 bundle, which they announced as part of this reveal of the trailer as well, features a custom PS5 console cover design and matching DualSense wireless controller. For those who already own a PS5 console, however, PS5 console covers and the Spider-Man 2 DualSense wireless controller will be available to purchase separately. And boy, is that real nice. Jez, this is the thing where it's like, you can do this where you could just remove the covers of the PS5, slap other covers on. So please don't force me to buy a whole new PS5 if I want a cool looking limited edition thing. And they're doing exactly that. They are going to sell those panels separately. I think that's pretty cool. What do you think?
That's awesome. I think it's really awesome. And it's kind of, look at my Xbox and yeah, it's really easy to skin because it's a cube, but it's not easy to take apart. So it would have been cool if Microsoft had some kind of shelling system as well.
Yes.
But some of the third-party shells for the PS5 are really cool. I really like the D-brand ones, which are sort of a little bit more subtle, I would say, than the lip thing they got going on. But I'm really intrigued what the rumored PS5 Slim is going to look like.
Yeah, I know. I'm wondering if that's, 'cause it sounds like it's going to be similar in terms of aesthetics, just actually slimmer, just actually smaller. And for video viewers right now, you could see the look of the PS5 Spider-Man 2 edition. It looks really cool, although I think I still prefer my original PS5 digital edition, so I think I probably will stick with that. But hey, if I want to just get the panels, I don't have to spend a whole bunch extra. Has Microsoft announced a Starfield Xbox yet? Because we have the headset, we have the controller. Is there a limited edition Xbox? And do you think that would happen?
Certainly haven't announced anything, and I haven't heard anything to suggest that we are going to get one. I mean, there's a lot of great fan renders out there. I mean, it makes complete and total sense. This is the first Xbox exclusive worth really getting excited about for like that sort of really broad audience in a long time. So for them to not have a console ready is either negligent or they don't have the chips available to indulge in such a thing right now, which is what I'm more inclined to believe. Right,
and it could be any like a combination of supply materials, right? The system on a chip is probably all going to one factory, but they also might not be able to like spin up a whole nother fabrication facility to produce a different kind of Xbox with a different paint job or whatever. Like that's requires tooling and stuff like that. And like, hey, we're just trying to get above water in terms of producing enough Xboxes as it is. That would put a kink in the works or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, but I really like my Starfield controller and headset. It looks so cool. I would definitely be willing to consider getting a special edition Xbox Series X branded with Starfield with like twice the amount of storage. That would be great. I mean, Microsoft's lining up everything else for the launch of Starfield, right? The switch from Xbox Live Gold to Xbox Game Pass Core is happening literally the first day you could play Starfield. All this stuff with like Activision feels like it's lining up for that as well. They're like, this is the future of Xbox, getting all lined up right now. It just feels like a little bit of a shame they can't get a Starfield limited edition console at the same time.
It was so cool if it had like a transparent side panel.
Yeah. Yeah, because like the go with like the transparent triggers. Yeah, absolutely. But yes, this Spider-Man 2 console looks very slick. Okay, let's move on here. Right here, Square Enix responds to Final Fantasy 16 sales concerns, points to PS5 install base. This comes from Wesley Yinpool at IGN. Square Enix has insisted sales of Final Fantasy 16 are extremely strong, telling IGN the game has sold well relative to the PlayStation 5 install base. The PS5 exclusive sold 3 million copies during launch week, a figure that sparked a debate online about whether it had met Square Enix's sales target. Final Fantasy VII Remake shifted 3.5 million copies in 3 days when it launched as a PS4 exclusive in April 2020. Final Fantasy 15 sold 5 million units in its first day, but that game launched on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One in November 2016, and remains the fastest-selling game in the history of the series. The debate was fueled by a Bloomberg article that pointed out sales of the game in Japan had dropped dramatically in the second week after launch. The initial sales had lagged behind previous games in the long-running role-playing series, and Square Enix itself was grappling with weak momentum on its flagship franchise. In a statement from Square Enix issued exclusively to IGN, the company pointed to the difference in install base between PS4 when Final Fantasy VII Remake came out and the install base of the PS5 when the Final Fantasy 16 launched last month. With 38 million PS5 consoles shipped globally as of March 31st, 2023, sales of Final Fantasy 16 surpassed 3 million units worldwide several days after its release on June 22nd, 2023. Taking into consideration the sales figures of the acclaimed Final Fantasy VII Remake and the difference in size of the install base of the PlayStation 4 at the time of that title's release, we can see that the attach rate of Final Fantasy 16 is considerably higher given the PlayStation 5 install base. And for me, Jez, all of that sounds about right. 3 million copies sold exclusively on PlayStation 5 seems pretty good. Not many. I don't think any game has done that exclusively on PS5. So it's like the fastest selling PS5 exclusive. And I think that number is probably going to be pretty strong. The question is, does it have the legs to get to a higher number as more people get PS5s? I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think I think it should probably have legs. I mean, I kind of upset some people by stepping into this debate, and honestly, the fact that there's even a debate, it's Square Enix's fault.
Yes,
Because Square Enix is the one who has become notorious for being like, oh, Tomb Raider missed sales projections, this game missed sales projections, that game missed sales projections, despite selling millions of copies. And they've created this sort of like, well, what are your expectations, Square Enix? You know, do you want this to sell like 50 million copies or something? Do you want an attach rate of 100%? Like, what is a win for you?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that's where that kind of debate, I think, comes from. It's Square Enix's own doing to some degree. But also, I think, like, there was some back and forth about the fact that it's not turn-based, it's a completely different genre. Like, they've dropped all sort of pretense of keeping the tactical heritage that the game has or whatever. By the way, I apologize if you can hear a police siren right
sirens
now.
are on our side, everybody. You don't feel like you got to pull over if you're driving.
Yeah. I live on a main road, so there's just constantly police and ambulances and all kinds of stuff.
I think it's fun. It adds texture to the podcast.
Good. Well, I do think it'll have legs, though. Final Fantasy as a brand just has legs. You know, the fact that the people of our generation or our age, you know, they're kind of like, there's a lot of nostalgia for Final Fantasy, but Final Fantasy's become it's become a monster on mobile as well, and not a lot of people sort of talk about, like Brave Exvius or whatever it's called, the gacha game and stuff.
That's right, yeah.
And, the brand has a lot of legs, and even just like, because I don't have a PlayStation 5 currently, it's one game that, as a Final Fantasy lifer, you know, avowed Final Fantasy lifer, I'm just say it's one of the first games, or amongst the, you know, another compelling reason to buy a PlayStation, I think, for a lot of people like me. But yeah, I do think it'll have legs, and you know, it'll come out on PC inevitably, and then he'll get all the mods, and that'll give it some extra legs as well, like the Battle Thomas the Tank Engine in Final Fantasy. I think. I think it's hopefully it's doing well, and it will do well.
And I think it's tough because it's like there are so many factors in like trying to figure this stuff out, and these companies are so quiet. And you're right, Square Enix is notorious for having these high expectations for certain games, and you know, a lot of that's driven by the costs of the games and the IPs associated, like the Marvel's Avengers, right? That was that probably sold like 3 million copies. I think, if I'm pulling that from memory, I think I was right. And that was unquestionably not enough because they were paying a lot for the IP and they had like bigger designs and all this stuff. And that game came out everywhere. So it's like, oh, that should have done better. As a PS5 exclusive, 3 million is probably I think it's pretty strong. And then it really now it's going to be down to that word of mouth. Are people going to be excited? And I think the word of mouth is mostly pretty positive. There's some people that are backlash against it, but that happens with every Final Fantasy game. And I don't think that's going to hurt it too much. And it does feel like a big prestige PS5 game. If you're going to spend $500 on a console, then yeah. Oh, you want me to turn on the video game for you? Sure thing, kiddo. Yeah. Yeah. Hey, there you go. You just got to shake it. There you go. All right. Yes. Good. She's got great timing. She really does. And you could see like that word of mouth actually like carrying the game forward, because it's like, hey, it looks big and expensive and pretty, and it is it's kind of, hey, if you like Game of Thrones, it's got some of that in there, and that's going to register with a lot of people, like that bigger, slightly more casual audience that comes to games for the bombast, and to feel like they're playing something that's cutting edge and technologically impressive and has cool storytelling, and the game has all of that. So I think that this is a game that can catch on as time goes on, but also I think that Final Fantasy is in this weird spot where it feels like it should be bigger, and maybe it's not going to be as big as the biggest games. On PlayStation, the biggest games sell about 10 million copies. The Spider-Mans are above that. Everything else, though, is like the big games sell about 10 million copies. So I wonder if this game can even get to there over time. Maybe it can, especially if they put out like a Game of the Year edition or something like that, and once it gets on PC with DLC. But I think at the start, though, 3 million copies seems pretty strong, I think.
I think like the fact that it launched within the Diablo window as well probably really overshadowed it in some ways. And
yes,
not only Diablo overshadowing it, but like because they didn't have that big multi-platform launch, there's less word of mouth. You know, if it did launch simultaneously on PC, it would have had more, word of mouth. I don't know what you call it, groundswell.
Yeah, just
critical
buzz,
mass, that kind of thing.
The zeitgeist, all that stuff. Yeah. I think you're right. Yeah. Do you think that when it does come to PC though, it could get that second win, because that happened with Death Stranding. Like Death Stranding was like, oh, I don't know if this is doing super well, and then came to PC, and it's like, actually, now it's like that game sold 5 million copies, and that's really good for that game.
I think it will, and like DLC, Death Stranding had that DLC boost as well,
right?
Which I think elevated the product a little bit, and I kind of feel like this Final Fantasy 16 will probably get fairly large amount of DLC. Final Fantasy 15 did get quite a lot of DLC, so I would imagine that they'll keep it rolling, and hopefully it will end up being a big success, because as a fan of the series, I don't want to see them abandon the core franchise and just sail off into the sunset with the mobile gacha games, because they easily could do that.
Yeah. Yes, it's Square Enix is always such a weird company where like they put out so many games and so many of them don't seem to hit in the last couple of years, and they put out a lot of bad games too, Balan Wonderworld and The Quiet Man and all that stuff.
It's like them.
Yeah, that's them. Yes, absolutely. They publish those games at least. So then, you're like, well, they're going to take Final Fantasy seriously, and it does feel like they did that. So they made the investment. You kind of hope like the lesson they learned is that investment is worth it, so they keep doing it, because there's not a lot of publishers out there making that level of investment on that kind of game. Sony is. But you're like, and the Square Enix was clearly trying to replicate Sony's model here, and it's like, is that even possible? It feels like it should be. The game seems, for all intents and purposes, to meet those lofty goals. But it's like, does that not make sense for a third-party publisher? Is that something that only really makes sense for the biggest company that is also selling hardware, where they get a 30% cut when you buy the system for their big prestige game, and then you spend a lot of money on Fortnite and they get all that money? Hopefully that's not the case. I want these other publishers to be like, this was worth it. So we'll see. Okay, moving on. Xbox's top 10 best-selling games are mostly old Xbox 360 Call of Duties. This comes from Zach Zweisen at Kotaku. Quick, without looking it up or remembering the name of or the headline of the story, what's currently the best-selling game on Xbox? Is it Elden Ring? Maybe a new Call of Duty? Perhaps that popular Diablo 4? Nope, it's Call of Duty Black Ops 2 for Xbox 360, and the rest of the top 10 is filled with other classic Call of Duty games as players flock back to the popular shooters in the wake of Microsoft ironing out some long-standing server issues. On the weekend of July 15th, with no heads-up or announcement, Microsoft and/or Activision fixed the matchmaking issues that had plagued numerous old Call of Duty shooters on Xbox 360, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X and S. At the same time, a vast majority of the classic online first-person shooters were put on sale, going for only $15 a pop. The end result of this, a shitload of players returned to these aging Call of Duty titles, making them some of the most popular games on Xbox. And now, as the sale continues and word of the fixed matchmaking spreads, a bunch of classic Call of Duty titles have flooded the best-selling games list on Xbox.com. Jez, I have the list here. It does start with Black Ops 2, then Modern Warfare 2, Black Ops, Modern Warfare 3, then we get NBA 2K23, and then it's back to Call of Duty with Modern Warfare 2. That's the 2022 version. 2009 version is actually in number 2, and then Black Ops 3 is after that, Diablo 4, and then Call of Duty World at War, and then Red Dead Redemption 2. Man, Call of Duty is still just that popular. I guess maybe it's entering its nostalgia era as well, where people are like, oh, I grew up on this stuff, I want to go back to that. But that is something that it seems ripe for exploiting by a company putting these games in Game Pass. I don't know. What do you think?
I would think so, yeah. I mean, I just pulled up the store list on my Xbox as well to see what it's like, and it looks pretty much the same in the UK. Like, NBA 2K is higher than some of the Call of Duty games, but a lot of nostalgia for Call of Duty in the UK as well, of course. I've just started installing Call of Duty World at War, because that's... Yeah,
why is World at War the one I want to play too? I'm like... I liked World at War at the time a lot, but it was not like Modern Warfare 2 were definitely my games, but I'm like, I want to go back to World at War for some reason. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I think it's maybe because the recent World War II game they put out was so bad.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was. World at War was just like real classic. That's what I wanted. I wanted just a World at War 2. I guess that would have been confusing.
Yeah, that's what I want too. But I think the fact that this has happened now is no coincidence. I mean, these are the games that probably are going to go to Nintendo Switch, and I imagine they'll go to Nintendo Switch with crossplay, probably, and probably having that server infrastructure in place is something that Microsoft's been working towards, because obviously they're the ones with the native versions backwards compatible. I don't think PlayStation 5 has those backwards compatible.
I don't know. I don't think so. And, you know, I mean,
they're 360 games. At the end of the day.
Right. And
So
360.
like
this is back when Call of Duty was
backwards?
a 360 associated game. Like people thought of Call of Duty as a 360 game at this time.
So it's pretty interesting. Are we going to see like a classic Call of Duty Xbox Series S bundle at some point?
I could
where
see
it's like, hey, play these old games for really cheap with Game Pass, and stuff like that. It's just another one of those weird gaming curveballs where like some really old ass game starts going viral on Twitch or something, and then suddenly there's a sequel in production and all this kind of stuff, But it's cool to see. I was saying on Twitter the other day, like what Call of Duty is today is just not what I want from Call of Duty personally. I don't want Homelander skin. I'm being very old man. Get off my lawn right now. I don't want. Yeah. I don't want all this stuff. This BS.
Yeah, I mean,
just give me Call of Duty.
Yeah, Call of Duty was just a product you bought, and then you could buy map packs and stuff like that. That was a big thing, right? But it was not a live service game. Not really. It was just an online multiplayer game, like anything else that had come before it. And now they are 1,000% live service games, and of course they are. That makes them more money. But it also turns it into something that feels different. So if you want that classic feeling, you have to go back to the classic games. And, the reality was these Call of Duty games, even these classic ones, have been expensive for a very long time. They rarely go on sale. I've never seen them for $15. They are usually like $40, if that, especially on like Steam. Like you look on Steam, everything goes on sale on Steam. The Call of Duty's on, they're like, oh, it's on sale. It's like it's down to $40. Like, okay, that's still too expensive. I already played that game. I own it on a disc back there. I just want to play on my PC too. But it makes me wonder, like, what are they doing here? Is this like them like one last hurrah before like they know all this stuff goes into Game Pass, or like let's get this stuff ready, let's get everything fixed up, and then let's just sell it. Let's do like the best deal ever on these games. I mean, it's working, whatever it is, but I wonder what the motivation is for Activision. Before Microsoft starts calling the shots there, it's just like, oh, let's just get one big payday.
Yeah, I mean, Microsoft was involved with making this happen. So I do think and I've got it on good authority that there's already plans in place for what it looks like after the acquisition, because the assumption right now between all parties is that it's inevitable now.
They don't want to like take their my guess here is that deal closes and things start happening very quickly after that, right?
Yep. Yes, there's a lot of prep work being laid down right now for when the deal closes, and what that means for customers in the ecosystem, the Xbox ecosystem, and Call of Duty. We've already seen Overwatch go to Steam, which is classic. I mean, Overwatch needs a bit of help right now, but I feel like that's a very Microsoft thing to do. Is the game's not doing so well.
That is what Microsoft has done, right? Microsoft done exactly that, putting their games on Steam to reach more players on PC. And now Activision's doing that. Yeah, it feels like, I think Microsoft's not technically allowed to call the shots, but their friends are allowed to have conversations, and then Bobby Kotick's allowed to go say, hey, now do this. So, I think that you're right that that's what all this stuff feels like. Everything we've had in the last 2 weeks, since the FTC thing was denied, the preliminary injunction was denied. All the moves we've heard out of Activision and Microsoft related to this stuff sounds like putting ducks in a row. And it seems like once that goes through,
quack.
Yes, and now they're making them quack. Exactly. I think I will play some Call of Duty. World at War seems like the one to go for. I bought all those games on disc, so I think I do have to buy them digitally again. I should just buy a couple of those and just have them. Although they are going to be on Game Pass.
We were talking about backlogs earlier, and now I'm downloading Call of Duty, and it's but this is the thing, modern Call of Duty is that kind of investment. It's like Battle Pass, you've got to invest your whole life into it, and it's like, well, I got World of Warcraft season to do, and then they want me to play Diablo as well, and I don't have time. And I ain't even got kids.
Yeah. It was like you mentioned I don't know if I'm going to keep playing Diablo. I put 200 hours in, and I'm like, man, I put 130 hours into Zelda over a course of 2.5 months. And that's been all I've basically been playing. And this is what happens. I'm like, all right, I got some time to play Zelda, and I'll look over here, and she's playing the Switch, and I can't get on it. So I need to get the other Switch set up again so she can play with that. But she likes to play on the TV. I'm like, look, you could take it with you and have it. She's like, no, I want it on the TV, and like that's the one that I play Zelda on. So yeah, pain in the ass. But yeah, that's what happens with gaming. You know, there's all this new stuff, and I'm always looking for what's new, absolutely. But I also I have these old games I love going back to. And right now it's been a lot of PS1 games and Super Nintendo games, and now apparently Call of Duty World at War. So that's going to be it too. All right, moving on. Borderlands film to release in August 2024. This comes from Marie DeLassandri at gamesindustry.biz. Borderlands film adaptation will hit theaters on August 9th, 2024. The release date was revealed by Deadline, which noted that the screenplay was co-written by Eli Roth of Hostel and Cabin Fever fame and Joe Crombie. Crombie is actually a different name for Craig Mazin, who wrote the Last of Us TV show and Chernobyl and all this stuff. And he wanted his name removed, so he gave that fake name instead, which is just incredible. He actually said, I am not a credited writer of the film, so I cannot claim any kind of authorship on Borderlands, much less co-writing, he said. I did see the report about the pseudonym. Oh, he says that this is false, which is false. I did not use a pseudonym. If the name in question is indeed a pseudonym, all I can say is it's not mine. Okay, this was a previous thing that people speculated on, I guess, because Joe Crombie is the name, and no one knows who Joe Crombie is. So I wonder if that's like a composite of Craig Mazin and some other stuff, or maybe that's Randy Pitchford's stage name or something now. Joe Crombie out there doing magic tricks. Mazin was initially reported to be involved in the film in 2020 when Eli Roth was revealed as director. The Hollywood Reporter said the script was written by Mazin. The Borderlands film was initially announced in 2015. Jesus, has it been that long? The cast includes Cate Blanchett, Edgar Ramirez, Kevin Hart, Ariana Greenblatt, Florian Moutinho, Jamie Lee Curtis, Jack Black, and more. This is something that recently we were talking about. Hey, that movie has been completed with filming for a long time now, 18 months or something like that, a year and a half, and we haven't heard anything about it. And then a week later, they come out with the date and they're like, it's coming out next year. There's nothing else to really tell you about it. Although Randy Pitchford did confirm on Twitter that he does not have a cameo in the movie. Jez, how devastated are you by that?
I don't know. I think I'll be okay. I think I'm going to be okay.
Oh man,
I'll be honest.
You're a real trooper.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I didn't know they were doing a movie until this.
Yep.
Until I heard that the dude was a pseudonym, but now it's not even true. That
I guess not.
So maybe it was all a marketing ploy.
Yep,
I know about the movie now. So
Joe Crombie is actually probably the screen name for ChatGPT. They probably just had AI rewrite the script or something, and they're like, "We'll just call it Joe Crombie." Here we go. Jesus Christ.
All the writers are on strike right now, so maybe it was ChatGPT.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I don't really know much about the movie or its development history, but the fact that it was announced in 2015 and it's taken this long to give it a date, that's a reddish flag.
Yes,
that's a maroon flag.
And there's been some other maroonish reddish flags along the way, which is mostly that what happened with Mazin here, him being like, no, I'm not writing it, and this weird pseudonym thing. That's one thing, obviously. But also there's been reports that it's in post-production hell, where the filming is complete and now they're trying to do, the editing and the effects work, and that stuff apparently is not going super well. But that's, maybe that's how it happens with a lot of movies. We'll see. The thing I remember the most was during the E3 2021, Randy Pitchford being on set of the movie and showing it off, and then just running up to every major star on the set and be like, I'm Randy Pitchford. I made Borderlands. Won't you be my friend, Kevin Hart? And it was super awkward and embarrassing. So somehow that's going to turn into a major feature film.
Yeah, I need to say that. I mean, another film that's sort of in some kind of weird state is the Minecraft movie. Where the hell is that? Right,
that was announced 10 years ago, right?
Yeah, it's a ridiculous amount of time ago.
Originally, it was going to be worked on by Rob McElhenney from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I know he's no longer on the project, but for years he was attached to direct that. and then there was another director who I can't remember attached to direct it. And
God knows.
I mean, that's typical with games, right? Games get licensed by Hollywood. They say they're going to make the movie. I mean, how many times has that happened with Metal Gear Solid and Halo? I mean, I know they made the show, but we pretend that doesn't exist. And then, yeah, so it's like that happens. This is normal. It's almost weirder when a movie actually does come out, and it seems like Borderlands somehow is going to be one of those.
But Hollywood's, I just quickly, like, Hollywood's got to be like, they've got to be looking at movies like the Mario movie and some of the success stories they've had. There's money to be made.
Yes,
if they just do it properly.
They're 1,000% looking at Mario. Everyone in Hollywood is like, okay, that's what we're doing now. So video games are going to be ripe for the picking for them, and there's a good chance for, if you have an IP that is relatively popular, to make some money. So a lot of these game studios and publishers are going to do that. And when we see like Sony, a lot of their strategy is, can we make a game and a movie or a TV show? And it's like, that's what's happening with Twisted Metal. I think we're getting a Twisted Metal game because they thought we could make a Twisted Metal TV show. And it's like, okay, we'll see how that goes. But that is the thinking right now at all these companies. So it's not too surprising that that's the route they went. All right, last handful of stories here. Roblox suffers a substantial data leak. This comes from Sophie McAvoy at gamesindustry.biz. Roblox has experienced a significant data breach containing nearly 4,000 developer profiles, as reported by PC Gamer. I mean, that's such a, like, I get that that's true, they're developer profiles, but developers on Roblox are like kids and a lot of times minors. So that's like, man, 4,000 profiles, probably mostly kids. As reported by PC Gamer, the personal information included those who attended the Roblox developer conference between 2017 to 2020. According to I Have Been Pwned, a website reporting data breaches, which emails me pretty much every day to say another thing's been breached for me, by the way. The breach originally took place in December 2020, and the information was republished on a forum in July 2023. The data leak included email addresses, names, usernames, dates of birth, phone numbers, physical and IP addresses, and t-shirt sizes. Of course. A source told Have I Been Pwned creator Troy Hunt via email that the initial breach was not publicly disclosed by Roblox, and those affected were allegedly not contacted, Hunt said on Twitter. Jeezy crazy. So Roblox is a company I think has a pretty notorious and scummy reputation at this point for its practices of taking most of the money that its content creators produce and kind of being this content mill that monetizes children in a way that's pretty rough. Combine that with having your data breached and then not doing the accepted best practice of immediately, as soon as it's possible, informing the people who are affected by that. That's a screaming red flag, right?
I mean, yeah. I mean, one of the things that emerged from the FTC trial was that the reason Roblox wasn't on PlayStation was because Sony was not happy with Roblox's data policies and stuff like that, and their approach to some of this stuff. Microsoft is generally like pretty. Usually, it's Microsoft who's the one who's really funny about data and stuff like that. But like for Sony to be like that, you know, forgo access to one of the biggest games in the world, that is a huge maroon flag.
Yeah,
you know. Well, that's not even maroon. We're going full blown crimson with that flag.
Yes, exactly.
So Roblox is a scummy company, like you said, and this is just part of the course. I just wonder if some regulator or some data authority will actually give them the kind of fine they need to get their shit together, because there's a long laundry list of stuff they have done that is just scummy. I might actually write that list next week when we're in Essential.
Oh,
Roblox is a scummy company. A scummy company. Scummy company? No.
Scummy
company.
Scummy Commies here on giantbomb.com, everybody.
No, not that one. A scummy company. Here's a long list of reasons why. Yeah. Well, that was a fun way to misspeak.
Listen, it happens almost every day on this show. I think I would read that list. I'd be interested. I know there's like long form videos on YouTube about Roblox and about their monetization strategies from people who are really good at that. I think People Make Games, I think, is who did it originally. I can't remember. Yeah. And it's like, I've never got around to watching that, but because it's like I don't have so much time for those kinds of videos that I would like to give my attention to. but I would love to like read more reports on what's going over at Roblox. All right, let's do this last one. Despite Nintendo and Valve, emulator dev isn't worried about legal dangers for Dolphin. This comes from John Walker at Kotaku. While Nintendo loves a lawsuit and emulation is often a contentious issue for publishers, few situations have been quite as high profile as the recent attempt to launch GameCube and Wii emulator Dolphin on Steam. The 20-year-old emulator engine has been long available online. Man, it's really been around for 20 years. But this attempt to become more mainstream ended pretty predictably. But now, after a few months of silence, the emulators... he keeps saying emu. I'm just not going to call it an emu. The emulators creators have spoken up and claimed Nintendo's suggestion that their software breaks the law are completely false. Back in March, it was revealed that the well-loved emulator Dolphin will receive a surprise release on Steam. The software used to run both GameCube and Wii games on modern hardware had a store page on Valve's PC gaming store, giving the unlikely impression that the decades-old emulator was going mainstream. Inevitably, this caused consternation, with the initial reports saying Nintendo issued demands to Valve that the page be removed and the software not distributed on Steam. It was later revealed that, in fact, it was Valve that went running to Nintendo to tattle on the project, with a Nintendo of America lawyer then requesting the removal using the DMCA as its rationale. Dolphin claimed Nintendo unlawfully circumvents its cryptographic keys, and so distributing the software constitutes unlawful traffic and copyright infringement. Despite all of this, the people responsible for Dolphin, Jez, were asked, hey, so, I mean, you still have those important codes in Dolphin where people can download that elsewhere outside of Steam. Are you worried about a lawsuit from Nintendo to come after you in the long run, to remove you from the internet completely? And the emulator people are like, no, not really. Nintendo hasn't really ever taken an emulator itself to court. They haven't gone after the emulators themselves. And I think people argue that's because Nintendo thinks they'll lose. I think it's more like Nintendo is worried if they do lose, then they enshrine in law, in precedent, that emulators are protected, and then they lose the threat of a cease and desist and stuff. So like right now they can threaten these things and say the DMCA and use that as like, okay, well, if we don't want it on Steam, we can like draw a line in the sand and say, this is the hard line, do not pass this, stay in your own little, corner of the internet. And if you get outside of that, if you get big for your britches, we will come after you. But if they lose in court, that would have a long-term ramifications for their ability to threaten legal action. And I think that's what they're more afraid of.
I think the complexity of the issue is really important here, because not only does, third parties like Dolphin use emulation, but Nintendo itself uses emulation for some of its stuff. Microsoft uses emulation, and, all the other companies use emulation. I think like someone took apart that not SNES Mini, the Mega Drive Mini. Yep. Oh, sorry, the Genesis Mini.
That's right, the superior name. Thank you for recognizing.
Someone took apart that device and found that, I think it was that. It might have been another one. But like Sega or someone, I can't remember exactly who it was, but they'd used like literal ROMs that they downloaded off the internet to make those devices.
That's right.
It was a big. I can't remember which company it was.
I think was it the PlayStation Mini actually? Because
it might have been.
They used like the
I can't remember.
Nintendo's done this in the past too, where they've used ROMs downloaded from the internet.
And it had the ROM creator's name still in the file name or something.
Exactly. That's happened in Nintendo for sure.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, emulation serves a technical purpose, not just for pirates, as they would suggest.
Right, and that's seen as like they draw information and they draw resources from that emulation scene, because a lot of that stuff is going to be open source. And if these companies then decide, hey, we want to go make a commercial emulator, they're often looking to what these open source projects have done. Sometimes they even license the open source projects themselves, like that. That's not some rare occurrence. And so this is like free work being done for them, and they don't want that to go away through legal threats. You're right. It's very complicated.
So, yeah, and like we've seen like regulators completely misunderstand the nuances of cloud gaming and the whole sort of the what Call of Duty being on Game Pass means and all that kind of stuff. Ask them to understand this. I mean, it's like a headache. Nintendo's legal team's probably just like, no, we can't.
Right.
We mustn't. We're not just we can't, we mustn't for the sake of our sanity.
I think Nintendo's very happy to be in that zone of we can threaten all we want, and that's way more powerful than actually suing people. Like, we're very good at threatening people, so we're going to just stick to that. So
Nintendo's scary.
Nintendo, scary. That's what we always say over at giantbomb.com. All right, let's get to the poll. I'm going to pull this up from yesterday, where we asked, have you avoided Blizzard games because they have not been on Steam? Only 23% said yes, 77% said no. But that 23% now is an opportunity to play Overwatch 2. You think this is going to make moves for that game, Jez?
No. The reason Overwatch 2 is failing is because it's not in a good position right now. The game, the development of the game has been poor. And this is coming from someone who actively plays Overwatch. Well, not so much anymore, but the community over there is not very happy, and the disruption that switching to 5v5 has brought to the game and switching from free to play and all that kind of stuff, they've sort of seen the industry run away from them, and CS:GO's doing gangbusters, and like you've seen battle royale games doing really well as well, and the sort of hero shooter sort of came and went, but then TF2's blown up again. People are so tired with Overwatch, they're going back to TF2 because it got seals. They added seals to TF2. And that was enough to remind people, oh yeah, there was a better version of this at one point. Let's go back and play that. So it's a mess of Blizzard's own doing, and I think putting it on Steam ain't going to do jack. Not going to do jack.
I think it sets it up for success in the future, but only if they address the issues with Overwatch and get people excited about it again. And that's where the real work will actually have the feet meet the pavement and all that. All right, I have another poll question I'm going to get to in a second, but in the meantime, Jez, why don't you tell people where they can find you on the internet, where you got your shows you do? Tell people about all of that.
Well, thanks very much for having me, Jeff.
Of course, absolutely.
This is the first time we've actually managed to podcast like this live before. We did XB2 plus 1.
Yes, we did XB2 plus 1, but like a live podcast for everybody. Yes, I think so.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks very much for having me. And I'm Jez Corden, windowscentral.com, on Twitter at Jez Corden, and we also do the Xbox 2 podcast on Randolph Thor 19's YouTube channel and at thexb2.com. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Let's see, giantbomb.com. We are going to have the results of the poll question. Are you upset that the Borderlands movie won't have a Randy Pitchford cameo? Your options are yes, I'm devastated by this lack of real magic, and no, I should not have to suffer a magician. So go ahead, vote for that. And on Monday on giantbomb.com, Game S Mornings, we will get that. Also on giantbomb.com. Speaking of, we're going to do UPF today early. It's a early Unprofessional Fridays. It's going to be 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. Look out for that. So we're going to be playing Sea of Thieves. We're going to be going in there and doing a little bit of that new content, the Monkey Island content. Looking forward to that. It's going to be me, Jan, and some friends. So look, that's very exciting. And then next week, we'll get back to the normal schedule. We'll have Game S Mornings, most mornings, Bombcast, all that stuff. We'll do Blight Club on Wednesday, and then I'm out for the rest of the week next week. So yeah, look out for all that. And a Remnant 2 Quick Look will be going up soon as well. All right, Jez, thank you so much for spending today talking with me about video games, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, man. It's awesome.
Thank you all for watching. You're the best audience in gaming. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself, and goodbye. All right, still hot mics. I'm going to bring us up here. Jez, if you got it.